Hello YouTube and hello viewers, and welcome back to yet another episode of creating a 2D side scroller in Unreal Engine 4. My name's Wazza. I've been taking you for all these amazing episodes so far, and I'm glad you guys are really enjoying it. The feedback's been great, so I'm just going to keep going until you guys probably get fed up with me, I suppose. So in today's session, we're going to look at setting up the sprites. This is something that's been requested by a lot of you, and it's something I had to wait on just to make sure I could use them inside my videos. I don't want to just use sprites and then get copyrighted and all that sort of jazz. So I needed to make sure that I could legitimately use the sprites that I was using. So we're going to look at creating the sprites for today's session. It might be quite a long session, this one, so hopefully I can keep it under 20 minutes. If not, it might just run over. And if it's even at its worst, I might just have to split it into two parts. So without further ado, let's get started. So where we left off last time is we managed to get everything working. So we managed to get our characters to move. So player 1 and player 2 now move together, obviously on different keys, obviously. So we can move them depending on where we are. They were jumping. We know that they were facing the wrong way. That's going to be fixed in another episode, so don't worry about that one just yet. But we can see that the cameras are working as we want to. However, what we want to do now is we want to set up the characters so they actually have a sprite associated to them. Now, I need to make this very apparent. At the moment, these sprites are going to be static. So the way I'm going to set them up in the beginning are going to be static sprites for player 1 and player 2. Once we move into the HUD section, where we're going to be able to do character select, this is going to change dramatically on how these enumerations that I'm going to talk about in a minute. There's going to be a lot of booleans involved. There's going to be a lot of arrays involved. And that's going to be further on during the series. So at the moment, they're just going to be static and nice and easy to use. Now, first of all, before I start, I got my sprites from this website here called SpriteResources.com. The one that I'm using is a Street Fighter 2 section. Basically, there's quite a few sprites inside this section itself. So if I had to go back a bit, you'll be able to see. So there's 3 fighters. That's all we're going to use in this episode. I'm actually going to set all 3 of them up. But for now, we're just going to use Ken, which is also really important, is that they've got the play select screen. So we can use that to our advantage. So we can actually put that inside the game. And there's a lot of sprites that we can use. In this case, we're going to be using Ken in this session, and you can quite easily download it. But before I start, basically the rules were that obviously don't claim it as your own. This is not mine. Obviously, I need to give credit to where these sprites have come from, which is Street Fighter 2, and the Ken sprites ripped from G-Dog. Thanks, G-Dog. I'm going to be using your sprites. Thanks very much for that. So these are not mine, guys. They're obviously taken off the website. You guys can use them if you like, but just remember, they're not yours. Obviously, if you use them, give credit to whoever made them. So all I did is I saved this out, and then I put them into Photoshop. So as you can see, here's my Photoshop here. So basically, I just brought into Photoshop, and then really all I did is I cut out the ones for today's session, which is basically the standing and walking that we're going to be using. So these ones here. And I also stole this jump animation here. So we'll be able to use that one. These ones here get a little bit more complicated. This jump right and jump left. I'll probably introduce those later on. But we are going to use quite a variety of these for the session. So make sure that you cut them all out if you can, if you've got some time. Obviously remove this background, make sure it's transparent. And you get PNGs like this. So basically you want them to become transparent, and you want to make sure that each one is cut out as they are. So if I just open that, I took out this block, took out this purple stuff at the back, erase the text and the borders that came out from it, which gave me this empty background. Very important that you do it for both of them, because if they're not transparent, things are going to get rather ugly. So just make sure that you do it correctly. So let's move ourselves back into Unreal. So let's just minimize those. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to create a folder. So obviously this is Ken. So first of all, we're going to call this one Sprites. Now obviously, depending on how many sprites you have in the game, I like to fold everything. So I'm going to fold this one. I'm going to call this one Ken. And basically with Ken, our first 2 sessions is going to be about new folder. So this is going to be as idle/walking. We can't have slash, can we? Yep. Can we have that? So idle/walking. And also we want to have jump. So we're going to separate the folders. It's just easier to work with if you separate things. It makes life 100 times more easier. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in that sprite sheet that I made. So I've already got the folder. So you can quite easily just drag it in if you like. So this is the PNG file. Or you can right click and import if you want to. So I've just imported that first one that I showed you. I'm going to right click on it. sprite actions, and we're going to apply paper 2D settings. That way we can get nice clean paper 2D settings for the object. Whereas if I didn't do that before, it looked all ugly. I don't know if you saw, it didn't look quite right. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go sprite actions, so right click sprite actions, and I'm just going to extract them out. So I'm going to extract, set to auto. You can set it to grid, but auto works quite nicely. Paper 2D is quite amazing for this, so it makes things 100 times more easier. And basically, it's going to cut out each one of these. And it's going to be a number order, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you get the drill. So it's going to be continuous, and it's just going to follow that method. So I'm just going to extract them all out, and you'll see that all of the walking and idle animations all come out as one piece. So if we go back to the picture, so if we just open up the picture, we can see that these top 4 is the idle animation, so these top 4 here. So if I had to select the top 4, so 1 to 4, right click on it and say create a flipbook, we can call this Ken underscore idle. So that's going to be his idle animation. And if we double click on it, you can see that he starts doing his idle. Now it's really, really fast, so we need to slow it down a little bit. That's quite easy. We just drop the frames per second here. I like it at 8. It seems to be a nice leeway for this type of style of game. If you put it obviously too high, it just goes really fast and looks really silly. If you put it really low, it just goes really, really, really slow. So I think 7 or 8 is nice. It's a nice sort of midway point for its actual animation. So we're just going to save that one. And so we've got the idle. The next one we need is the walking animation. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is actually walking backwards, this one. So this one's going to be walking backwards. Our character doesn't walk backwards. He actually flips. So we're going to make sure we just use this one here. So we're going to use 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So if we go back into our Unreal, 5 to 9. Right click, and we're going to create a flipbook out of that. And we're going to call this Ken underscore walking. Pretty straightforward. And again, we're going to do the same. We're just going to drop those frames down to 8. Actually, we'll just keep it as even. So we're just going to put it down to 7. Actually, I think that's the walking backwards one. I think I might have made a mistake, but we'll see what it looks like inside the game. So you can see we've got 2 flip books. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more. We're going to have the punching animations. We're going to have the kicking animations. We're going to have loads and loads of stuff. And they're all going to be part of the flip book stuff. The next one we need to put in is the jump animation. So we're just going to get that one quickly. So we're just going to get the jump animation. Same process again, jump and extract. Apply paper 2D first, then we're going to extract. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, we're only going to use 1, 2, 3, and 4. We don't need to bother about the rest. So we're just going to take 1 to 4. We're going to create a flipbook. And this one's going to be Ken underscore jump. You could use all of them, but in this example, we're just going to use the ones that we got. We're actually going to slow down the jump a bit. So we're going to put it maybe to 4 maybe. And you'll see why. Because it's very repetitive, and for this session, we're just setting the sprites so it looks kind of funny, but we want to kind of control it in this one. Just very simple, really. So now we've got those set up. You could do the rest for all the other 3 characters if you've got some time. I'm going to have to do it sometime, but you can set up all 3 of them while you're waiting for my next video maybe. That way you've got them all out of the way. It is a bit of a long journey of a job, but once it's done, then it's pretty much done. But remember, you can't use these sprites for games you're going to release. Just remember that. You have to make your own if you want to do that. So what we need to do next is we need to have something called an enumeration. This is going to trigger between our different states of our character. So different types of animations that he might have. So we're actually going to make a new folder, and we're going to make this, we're just going to call it enums. Enums. I think I spelled that wrong. And we're just going to right click in this area. And if you go to, I think it's under blueprints, you've got an enumeration here. I'm going to select that. We're going to call this player 1 enum. We're also going to have a player 2, but just in this episode, we're just going to have player 1 for now. So basically in this enumeration, we need to set up certain states for our character. Now these could be a variety of states. As I say, we're going to have quite a few. But to start off with, let's just put in idle, because that's his first state. The idle is part of the jumps. It's part of the walk, so we're going to just make that idle /walk. The second one, we're going to call it jump. And obviously we're going to have more, so let's just put some more in for now. So we're just going to put punch, and then the next one's going to be kick. Depending on how many you want to put into your game, you can. I'm just putting in ones that I think I'm going to use in the next few series. Win, lose. I think that'll be okay for now. We're just going to set up these two for this episode, and then obviously future ones to come, we'll start looking at punch, kick, win, and lose. So let's close all these down because we don't need them. So our next step now is to think, how do we get this enumeration to work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If we go into our blueprints and we open up our 2D side scroller, so our first 2D side scroller guy, because we're going to work with player 1 in this instance, notice we have something that's handling all the animation. So we've got this event here that's triggering all the updates to the animations that are happening. We've already got one preset for idle and running. So that's why I said we kind of put idle and running together, because it's already done for us. And we just need to set up the extra ones. However, we just need to set up the flipbooks to be what we want them to be. So what we need to do is we need to get access to our enumeration that we created for our character. Now that's pretty straightforward. All we have to do is, if we drag off this node and say switch player 1 enum. So remember we made that enum called player 1 enum. If we click on that, you'll notice we've made this switch. So let's actually make some space here, guys. Let's just move this out. This is going to get really big, so it's a good idea to move it very far out. Give yourself a lot of space to play with here, because it's going to get very, very big. And let's just select all of this stuff here. Why can't I select that? We'll just move it across. Come on, why are you being awkward today? Here we go. Now you'll notice that by default it's set to idle walk. We're going to make sure that we can make this functional, so we can send in values to this to trigger these. So we'll have to make a variable in a second. But basically off this idle walk, we can see we're setting this flipbook with this sprite. Now, as I said to you, this is going to become very complicated, because what happens if player 1 might want to be a different character? Well, these flipbooks are going to change, so this is where the arrays and stuff are going to come into play. But for now, again, I say we're going to keep it very static. So first of all, let's put our idle animation in. So we've got a Ken idle, and we've also got a Ken walking. So we've got both of them. So if I compile, save, and play, that should put Ken into our game. And if we start walking, you can see that he's got an idle animation. He's very small at the moment. We'll change that in a second. And he's floating, and we'll see why. This is pretty small, but his animations are working. So if you're standing still, you can see his idle's working. And if we start walking, you can see the walking animation starts taking place. I'm not sure if he's walking backwards or forwards. I don't get it. But you guys could probably correct me in the comment section, I suppose. So why is he so tiny? Well, let's go into the viewport and let's click on the sprite here in our components. Now, by default, it's set to the Unreal character. We don't want to check that because we're not using that character. We're actually using Ken idle in this state. And you can see he's pretty small. The capsule's over him, so basically that's why he was floating, because there's all this space here. So he's pretty much floating in the air. So let's just make him a little bit bigger. So make sure all the axes are selected. So grab the middle. I didn't grab the middle. I just told you to grab the middle and I didn't. Grab the middle. And if you drag him, you can see you can make him slightly bigger. So I do it by 2 and just try and fit him into that capsule. Compile and play. So now he's at a decent size. If you compare him against that one, you can see that he's not of a bad size in regards to a character. Now all we need to do is get him onto the floor, and that's just because of this capsule. You can see that it's underneath his feet, so we need to change this. So if we click on the capsule and change the half height, you can see that it'll change in value. So it'll drop it down a bit. Now there's going to be a lot more stuff coming off this component, because we're going to have to add things for punches. We'll put little spheres on his hands, and it'll be pretty cool, guys. Just watch this space. It gets really amazing. And we could actually make this a little bit thinner. Oops, wrong one. So we could make it a little bit thinner so it fits around his body. Here we go. So technically this is probably not the best way of doing it, because if you hit him here, nothing's going to really trigger. If you hit him on his hair here, nothing's really going to trigger. But anything outside this capsule could be a problem if we decide to punch and stuff, but trying to get it accurate is rather difficult. If anyone could guide me in the right direction of maybe how we could make this a little bit better, please let me know in the comment section, and I'll definitely have a look at that. So compile and save. Now if we play, he should be on the floor, so he's pretty much on the floor now, so that's not too bad in regards to how we got that to work. Let's get the character moving left and right. So that's pretty much him set up. If we just close the character, actually we need to go back to the event graph. And now we need to bring some information, so you can see all our enums are here. And really we're just going to set up different flip books for our animation. So we can just copy this. We'll paste that there. Now off the jump animation, we want to set obviously the animation. So the flip book. So you can see that this flip book's triggered these two on this flip book. This one we're going to set to him jumping because this is the jump animation, as we can see here. But obviously if I compile and play, you can see that if I jump, it doesn't actually trigger his jump animation. He's still actually walking because he's got velocity, obviously. So he's going to start, obviously when he's falling, he's going to look like he's walking. So we need to trigger this, but before we can do that, we need to make sure that we trigger this enum with a value. So we want to send information to this enum to trigger each one of these values. And that's really easy. We're just going to make a variable for this, and we're just going to call this player1 enum. Again, you can call it whatever you like. In this instance, I'm just going to call it player1 enum. And the variable type is, if I type in player1, you'll notice that we get the player1 enum. Compile and save. You can see it's by default idle and walk, exactly the same as what it's here. If you wanted to give him a certain default value, you could choose it in here, and then obviously whatever that is will then trigger this first. But in this instance, we want to make sure it's just staying at idle. You could separate them, so you could separate the idle and you could separate the walk. But again, it's up to you, it's your game. But I'm just doing it for simplicity and length of the video. So this is really not going to make a difference because basically we need to tell it now that we need to send the jump animation to this section. So we need to send information to this player1 enum, so it will then trigger this jump, and then we'll be able to play this flipbook. Now to do that, we need to go into our player controller. So this is where we set all the information for our character, i.e. the jump section here. So what we can do is off this section. So remember, we're looking at our 2D side scroller character, so this guy here. And what we want to do is we want to drag off here and we want to set player1 enum. So we're going to set it. And what we want to set is once he's jumped, so once we hit that jump, we want to set the enum to go to jumping. And we could reset that if we wanted to. It's probably not the best way of doing it, but again, I don't want the video to be too long. Is that once we release the key here, we could tell him to go back into the idle state. So once he's jumped, i.e. once we press this or hold this, then it will stay in the jump value. However, once I release it, he's going to go into the idle. Now remember, he's got velocity, so he'll start walking midair. So we could fix that maybe in later episodes. So if I play that now, you'll notice we can walk. If I jump, he does this jump animation. You see that? So we now got this jumping animation. When he jumps, obviously if you hold down the W, it's going to keep looping that animation. We could stop that if we wanted to with a very simple command. I think we just stop and then stop flipbook, I think it is. Yeah, stop sprite. Oh, we can't do it in here, but we'll have to do it in the controller here to stop this. But you can stop that value, and then, but because we slowed it down, it's not too bad in regards to what it looks like. So that's pretty much setting up the values for each one of them. What I'd like you to try and do, and if you could share, if you guys could share screen prints of you doing it so I know that you guys are following along, I'd like you to try and set up a player 2 one. So I want to see if you can manage that on your own. I'm obviously going to make a video tomorrow on how to set up player 2, but if you guys could give it a go, maybe share screenshots before I do one in the evening, just so I can see that you guys are following on. And if you guys have got any advice, please make sure you can share that with me, and then obviously we can share it out with the community. So again, I want to thank you guys very much for joining me on this episode. It's been great taking you for all these series. Again, remember you can't use those sprites for your own games. Please make sure you credit them. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me in this episode. If you like this video, remember to hit that like button. If you really enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed my videos, please make sure you share with all your friends. Thank you very much, and goodbye.